Long ago, in a distant land, there lived a prince known for his arrogant and ruthless behavior. He was the son of the richest and most powerful king in the 4 kingdoms of the land of Ud. His name was Prince Ido, and he was a very handsome man. All the young women in his kingdom loved him and wanted to marry him. But this was something Prince Ido never thought about. He was rude, and he thought he was a god and that no woman deserved him. He thought he was better than everyone else and treated his subjects with contempt. Prince Ido had 2 sisters, Lafia and Eru, both beautiful and behaving like princesses. Prince Ido was the only son of his family, which made him heir to the throne of Ud. He was so loved by his family that they gave him everything he wanted and spoiled him with many treasures and servants. His wealth and riches had made him so arrogant that all his servants disliked him and trembled in his presence. Prince Ido did not like to be touched by strangers and did not like to talk to people. He was very rude, and whenever he wanted to go around the city, he would get into his horse-drawn carriage and travel with a large convoy of guards surrounding him. He was indeed a prince of a great country. One day, while driving his carriage, he saw an old beggar in rags kneeling in front of Prince Ido in the marketplace and stopped. He asked her why she was so dirty and begging for money. The beggar woman said she had no home and no money and begged him to help her. The prince arrogantly replied that he had no money to give to a lazy old woman like her. The beggar looked at Prince Ido with sad eyes and told him that she was not lazy. She was old and sick and had no one to take care of her. Ido laughed and answered her that you are just a loser and you deserve to be in this situation. Ido turned and walked away, leaving the beggar to fend for herself. But as he walked, he felt a strange tingling sensation all over his body. He looked at his hands. They were covered with something black and had sharp claws. Ido panicked and ran back to the beggar, got down on his knees, and asked her what she had done to him. He thought she was an evil spirit or a cursed ghost. The beggar smiled and answered him, I cast a spell on you. From now on you will walk around as a human being during the day, but at night you will turn into a monster. And every full moon you'll wander the forest like a monster. You'll only eat grass and plants. Ido was horrified and begged the beggar to lift the curse, but the beggar refused. You must learn to be humble and compassionate and find someone who loves you. She said that for the curse to be broken, she must love you for who you are, in the form of a monster, and that will not be easy. Ido returned to the palace and tried to keep his transformation a secret. He ran to his room and locked himself in. He stayed in his room for days without going out or eating. His sister Eru tried to talk to him, but he wouldn't let anyone into his room. 2 weeks later, towards the end of the month, there was a full moon, and it was time to wander in the bushes and eat grass. And as night approached, he left the palace in time as a human being. And he went into the bushes, expecting to turn into a monster. But one of his sisters, Eru, followed him secretly. She was disturbed by her brother's strange behavior, and when Prince Ido arrived in the forest, she decided to follow him to find out the secret behind his strange behavior. Ido sat under a tree in the forest, his heart pounding in his chest as he waited for darkness to fall. He knew that when darkness fell, he would turn into a terrible monster with sharp teeth and clothes. At exactly midnight, he turned and started eating grass. Eru was so horrified by what she saw that she fainted. When Eru woke up in the morning, she ran to the palace and whispered to her sister that the prince was a creature that turned into a half-beast and half-human at night. But her sister laughed instead of believing her. Eru asked her sister to come at midnight to see how Ido had turned into a monster. At midnight, Eru and Lafia approached Ido's room, their hearts pounding in their chests. When they looked through the hole in the door, they saw Ido standing in the middle of the room. Its glowing red eyes widened. His body began to convulse, and within seconds his chest swelled, transforming into a huge beast, a mix of lion, bull, and bear. Eru and Lafia screamed and ran back to their room as fast as their legs could carry them. In the morning, Eru and Lafia immediately told their mother about the horrific scene they had seen. They told her parents to go around the palace at night, catch Ido when he was about to leave and put him in a cage so they could see if he would turn at midnight. That night was the last day of the month, and there was a full moon. It was time for Ido to leave the palace to eat grass. But just as he was about to leave, his parents and siblings ambushed him and locked him in a big cage. At midnight, Ido's body began to convulse, and his muscles swelled, and within seconds he transformed into a huge monster with sharp teeth and clothes. The king and queen were horrified. The queen could not stop crying because her son had turned into a monster. They invited different magicians and even high priests to save their son from the evil curse. But no one could save the prince or lift the curse. They were told that the only way to remove the curse was to ask for help from the person who placed it. All his servants ran away from him because they were afraid he would turn and eat them. Every time he transformed, he would trash the palace and even try to kill someone. As a result, Prince Ido was captured and locked in a tower in the forest, far away from the palace. Once transformed, he could not kill or eat anyone. After a few weeks in the tower, the full moon came, and it was time for the prince to eat grass that night. He tried to come down from the tower, but it was too high. He looked down and saw how high it was. Finally transformed into a monster, he could no longer resist the urge to eat grass and jumped from the tower to the ground. The prince turned into a monster was injured when he jumped from the tower. With the pain of the wound, he collapsed under the tower and fainted. A beautiful girl named Ma came to the forest to collect food. Ma was an orphan. Her parents died when she was a child. Ma lived with her aunt who treated her very badly. And as a result of her aunt's mistreatment, she ran away from home and lived alone in a hut in the forest. That morning, Ma went out with her basket to collect white berries to eat for breakfast. As she approached the high tower looking for her white berries, she saw Prince Ido lying unconscious on the ground. And taking pity on him, she carried him as best she could and brought him to her little hut in the forest. Ma began treating Prince Ido's wound. When he regained consciousness, he thanked Ma for saving his life. He asked Ma for some food. After eating, he told her he had to leave. He didn't want to turn into a monster in front of Ma's eyes. Ma wouldn't let him go. She told him it was getting dark and the forest was dangerous. Ido didn't want anyone to see him turn into a monster, but he was very tired and wanted to stay with Ma. After much persuasion by Ma, he finally agreed and stayed in the hut at midnight that night. Ido turned into a monster in the middle of the night. He thought Ma would be afraid of him. He tried to run away from Ma, but she said she wasn't afraid of him. In the morning, Prince Ido woke up and was surprised to see that he had become a human being again. He thanked Ma for her hospitality. He was very excited and happy to have someone who accepted him as he was. That morning they needed firewood for cooking, so Prince Ido went to collect some wood from the forest. While collecting wood, he came across an old woman who was struggling to lift a bundle of wood. So he offered to help her and carried the wood to her hut. When he reached the old woman's hut, she was very pleased, but at the same time took pity on the prince and said to him, "I will tell you how to break the curse because you have been humble. You must learn to be humble and merciful, and I see that you have already begun to be humble. You have only one debt left to make yourself human again. You must find someone who loves you for who you are, even if you are a monster. On the day of the marriage ceremony, your curse will be lifted." Prince Ido was both happy and a little puzzled, wondering where he would find a lover who would want to marry a beast like him. After a while, he decided not to think too much about it. He went about his daily business, and as the weeks passed, Prince Ido and Ma started to like each other. they became closer. Prince Ido knew he had to tell the woman he loved the reason for the curse. He didn't want to deceive her. He wanted her to know what caused him to turn into a monster at night. But he was afraid she would reject him if she found out the truth. Finally, Ido gathered his courage and told Ma about the curse and what had caused it. Ma listened patiently and smiled when Ido finished. "I don't care if you turn into a monster. I love you just the way you are," she said. Prince Ido was very happy and knew that he had finally found the person who could break the spell. Ido and Ma decided to get married and had a small wedding in the forest, witnessed only by the old woman. On their wedding night, Prince Ido turned into a monster, but Ma was not afraid. She hugged him tightly and told him she loved him. Ido's heart melted as he realized that Ma's love was real, and he finally learned to be humble and compassionate. The next morning, Ido woke up to find that the spell had been broken and he had become fully human again. Ido and Ma returned to the kingdom of Ud and were reunited with his family. Ido became the new king and ruled with wisdom and mercy. He never forgot the lesson he learned and always treated his subjects with respect, and was a very kind and good ruler.